being able to be a supplier on Amazon is incredibly complicated. You need as many people to manage your Amazon business as you would to manage a full-fledged e-commerce business. These smaller brands would love to be able to get another marketplace that they can sell on. They don't have the bandwidth because they can't lose that market share and that revenue that they have on Amazon. Welcome to the Day 2 podcast. Today's episode: are online marketplaces destined to become monopolies? I'm Jason Boyce, founder and CEO of Avenue 7 Media and host of the Day 2 podcast. With me today is Shirish Nadkarni, whose new book, Winner Takes All: Case Studies in How Online Marketplaces Are Creating Modern Monopolies. This book, which I read over the weekend, Shirish, it broadened my thinking about the Amazon marketplace and others, and they may not be so evil after all. Shirish is a serial entrepreneur with proven success in creating multiple consumer businesses that have scaled to tens of millions of users worldwide. He was the co-founder of LiveMocha, the world's largest language learning site, with 15 million plus registered members from over 200 countries, which was acquired in 2013 by Rosetta Stone. Prior to LiveMocha, Shirish was the founder of Team On Systems, a mobile wireless email pioneer that was acquired by BlackBerry in 2002. He is also the author of Winner Takes All: Case Studies in How Online Marketplaces Are Creating Modern Monopolies, and the award-winning book From Startup to Exit, an insider's guide for launching and scaling your tech business. So Shirish, thank you for being here. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Well, we're honored to have you. Two-time author, very successful entrepreneur. You know, I'm just reminded, I just watched the BlackBerry movie. Did you catch that by any chance?
Yes, I did. It was a great movie. It was somewhat of a satire, kind of exaggerated both the CEOs, but it was fond memories going back to my BlackBerry days.
What a rocket ship, meteoric rise that company had. And amazing to be on the end of selling a technology company to them.
Yeah, no, it was great. I mean, BlackBerry was quite an icon in its days, just like the iPhone is today. And it took off, as you said, like a rocket. Everybody was using a BlackBerry. Unfortunately, they didn't really predict the demise, and the demise came pretty quickly as well.
Rosetta Stone is another big company, loved by young men everywhere who want to learn the language of their foreign lover. Maybe not every Rosetta Stone customer, but that must have been a great ride as well. Tell us a little bit about that marketplace that you created, and what did Rosetta Stone tell you attracted them to it?
With LiveMocha, we created a social language learning marketplace where we provided instruction, but also connected you with language tutors around the world. So it was a marketplace connecting students and tutors. We had, as you mentioned, we had over 15 million members in 200 different countries, and we had over 300,000 language tutors around the world who would be available to help you practice your target native language. So it was quite a success for us, fortunately. Yeah.
I know when Rosetta Stone came out, it was sort of a self-service tool. Was your company the one that introduced Rosetta Stone and opened up that audience to support and tutors? Or did they already have some before they started and they acquired your marketplace to scale that?
Rosetta Stone was really a CD-ROM based product. It was kind of individual learning. So you bought Rosetta Stone and you inserted the CD into your disk drive, and then you would run the CD program and you would learn directly from that CD program. There was no interaction with native speakers. And having learned many languages in my past, I know that the importance of practicing with native speakers. And so what we brought for Rosetta Stone was the fact that we were online. You don't have to buy a CD-ROM box. Go online to livemocha.com. You could register, and then you could take your lessons online without installing any software. And then you would connect with language tutors who would help you practice your target language. So that's why Rosetta Stone bought us, because we had these 15 million members across 200 different countries, whereas they were primarily a US-based company.
That was the piece that I missed when I bought the Rosetta Stone CD, because I was traveling to China a lot, talking to factories, and I wanted to learn some basic Chinese. And then when I would try it, no one in China understood what the hell I was talking about. So I was like, oh, I'm missing something here. Having the tutor would have helped tremendously. So Shirish, here's my question. You've given a lot of thought to this idea and this concept of a marketplace with its network effects. And again, I loved the book. When you started Live Mocha, did you already have that knowledge, or did you learn that knowledge in real world experience by starting a business that became a very reputable marketplace?
No, I didn't really have any prior background in starting a marketplace. So with Live Mocha, it was my first experience in starting a marketplace. Traditionally, marketplaces are very difficult to get off the ground because of the chicken or the egg problem.
Yeah.
Fortunately, we had such a fast growth with our end users because they were coming there primarily to learn a specific language. We did not have trouble attracting language tutors to our platform. So we were able to get both sides of the network in place and have a robust exchange between the two parties. So that worked out, pretty well, for us. But I'm well aware of some of the challenges that marketplaces have to get started, and which is what I've discussed in my book.
Let's talk about some of those challenges. So you were lucky. Was it search engine optimization? Tutors and people who wanted to learn the language were clamoring to the internet, and you were ranked well. Tell me more about how some of those challenges you overcame in Live Mocha.
One of these strategies that we focused on was getting really good PR, and we got an amazing article about Live Mocha in the New York Times, and boy, did our traffic just jump to the roof after that. And there were a lot of blog writers who also wrote about us, and so the word spread virally. For us, we were very unique. At that time, there was no solution in the marketplace. It was free to get started. And then, for more advanced courses, you could, pay for it. And it satisfied the need of users to practice their target language. So those are some of the factors that led to the growth of end users. And once you have end users, then language tutors wanted to be on that platform. It took us about 3 months to get to 100,000 users, about a year to get to 1 million users, and then 5 million. So it was growing very rapidly, and we got a lot of press coverage, articles by blog authors, etc. And that, ultimately drove the other side of the network, which was the language tutors.
Sure.
We wanted to go where all the language students were.
So right place, right time, providing a solution that the market was desperate for. And, some blogger and New York Times press and backlinks didn't hurt the cause.
Yeah, right.
Did you inject a lot of marketing dollars in the early days?
Yeah, we did spend some amount of money on SEM, especially in other countries where SEM was fairly inexpensive. And so we would use SEM to kind of get each country kind of off the ground. And then we would taper off, go to another country, etc. But of the users that were attracted to our platform, about 25% came through marketing dollars, and about 75% came through word of mouth viral growth.
Oh, that's a winning combination right there, Shirish. That's fantastic. Okay, so you start this, you're right place, right time, great press, lots of backlinks, lots of organic traffic coming to the platform. You're serving their needs. How long into the Live Mocha journey did you start to realize and start thinking about this idea of a marketplace as a whole? When did you get fascinated by it? Was it through this?
Yeah, through this. I mean, originally the focus was on creating language instruction and getting that, off the ground and easy to use, etc. But very quickly thereafter, we added the marketplace and language tutors to our platform as well. So it came fairly quickly and completed kind of the vision for the product for us.
You create this amazing company, you get Rosetta Stone to buy it.
Yeah.
Was it at that point that you really started doing your research on marketplace based on your frame of reference of building a marketplace?
I've been tracking different kinds of marketplaces over time. So I've always been fascinated by marketplaces and the fact that, as I discussed in my book, that's a winner-take-all kind of scenario, or winner-take-most, depending on how strong the network effects are. So that's always been fascinating for me. And then I've been tracking various marketplaces like Amazon and Google and Apple and others, especially some of the monopoly behavior that they've engaged in and so forth. So it's been fascinating for me to track marketplaces and understand how they work and do some research on it and so forth.
I just thought of 3 different sections of the book that I wanted to talk about all at once. That monopoly behavior really is rough. When you see it in your book, specifically Amazon, which is a company that I've been, sort of at arm's length with for going on, more than 20 years, it's really awful, the behavior. Describe this network effect that you're talking about. Why is it that marketplaces, what is it structurally about marketplaces that does make it, in fact, a winner-takes-all proposition?
Once you gain critical mass in a marketplace, and it can be critical mass in a specific market. It doesn't have to be a worldwide critical mass. You could start in Seattle or in San Francisco or New York. Then what happens is that you get this phenomena where more and more suppliers join the marketplace because there are a lot of consumers. And then more consumers start coming to the marketplace because they see a wide array of suppliers. So it's a virtuous cycle, a virtuous effect that takes place where more consumers drives more suppliers drive more consumers, and then the flywheel just takes off, and you don't really need to invest, much in terms of marketing dollars to promote the platform. And we've seen this time and time again, with eBay first, and then Amazon, Alibaba, and then with Airbnb. Within 10 years, it's the largest marketplace for lodging.
Relating that back to Amazon, I watched that movie play out right from the opening credits to where it is today. And it was exactly that. I, back in 2002, was recruited to sell my products that weren't even my own. I didn't even have my own brand at the time. I was just a internet e-commerce retailer. I was recruited to supply products on the Amazon platform, and they had a lot of customers. They'd built that model with books and electronics and media at the time, which was DVDs, which is hilarious to think about right now with all the streaming owning the market. But I watched it happen. I watched more and more sellers, more and more competitors, which wasn't great. It was great to be an early mover on Amazon because life was a lot easier in the earlier days than it is now. But I've also noticed, I wonder if this network effect, fast forward from 2002 and I launched to 2023, 21 years later, being able to be a supplier on Amazon is incredibly complicated. Like, you can't have a person working on your Amazon business anymore. You need as many people to manage your Amazon business as you would to manage a full-fledged e-commerce business.
Mm-hmm.
And there's 2 billion products listed on Amazon. It's a massive number. These smaller brands would love to be able to get another marketplace that they can sell on. They don't have the bandwidth because they can't lose that market share that they have and that revenue that they have on Amazon. And it would mean significant investment to manage, grow, and learn a new platform. Does that go beyond the Amazon marketplace? Do you see that in other marketplaces as well?
Yeah, I mean, in China, for example, with Taobao and Alibaba, you have the same phenomenon in those markets as well. But what you describe, Amazon, where what's called multi-tenanting costs are, pretty high. So it's very difficult for a Walmart to attract the same supplier base because it is takes so much effort to establish itself on a different platform, track it, advertise on it, update your inventory on a timely basis. All of that just is a lot of work. So one of the attributes of a marketplace that makes a marketplace a winner-take-all situation is where multi-tenanting is difficult. So it's difficult for suppliers to be on multiple platforms, and that's what makes one platform, one marketplace really, really successful.
Fascinating. Let's talk about China. I loved the section where you tell the story of eBay versus Alibaba. Did that story predate Amazon as a marketplace per se? That battle happened long before Amazon.
Correct. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that, and how did eBay lose in China?
Right. So eBay acquired another company in China that had established a consumer-to-consumer marketplace, and they were the dominant marketplace in China. And Alibaba, which was established originally as a B2B marketplace, felt threatened by this startup, which was then acquired by eBay. And because, they said, hey, a lot of small businesses also consumers, and they didn't want to lose that opportunity in the Chinese market, which, over time became humongous. They came into the market and they did a lot of innovation. They did not charge for listings like eBay did, and that made it a lot easier for suppliers, merchants to get onto their marketplace. They provided a escrow service. So, you could be sure that if you ordered something that, it would get to you, the supplier would be paid only once the consumer clarified or communicated that they received the item that they ordered. And then they added Alipay, for payment. A lot of innovations that they did that eBay was slow to respond to. And eBay had trouble coordinating their product development between China and the US. And they tried to fit the US model onto China, which didn't quite really work. They could not really respond fast enough to the Chinese threat from Alibaba. So those are some of the factors that led ultimately for eBay to losing that opportunity to Alibaba.
That's a really important lesson to learn. Don't try. We talk to brands who want to sell in EU, in Germany, in Europe all the time, in the UK, and you can't. Sometimes it's not a good fit, right? The markets are very different. In a short distance from London to Berlin, it's not a very big distance, miles wise or kilometers wise, but there's very different cultural norms in each of them, and sometimes the product doesn't work. So that's interesting. When I originally started to read this section, Shirish, I thought, well, this is about the Great Chinese Firewall, but that really didn't happen until a decade and a half later. It was 2015, 2014, when the Chinese government started getting involved and really knocking off these American companies, right? So this was just eBay missed the mark.
Yeah, eBay missed the mark, and Alibaba was supremely aggressive and innovative. And they won fair and square. They didn't have the Chinese government backing them.
The other thing that resonated with me about this particular story, Shirish, is when you write in the book that Alibaba made listings free, it totally resonated because at the time Amazon called us, my previous brand, in 2002, we were struggling to try to figure out the profit model on eBay because you had to pay a listing fee and then you paid a different fee if you actually got the sale. And there was too much variation. We couldn't figure out a pricing schedule. So Amazon came to us, and I'm sure they had the eBay seller list, and they were plucking people right. They were plucking suppliers right from eBay. And they said, guess what? No listing fee. You list it for free. There's no additional charge. It's just 15% of every sale goes to us. We take care of everything else. Now, of course, as that market effect and their monopoly power has grown, it's a lot more expensive than 15% to sell on Amazon. But I thought, what a brilliant stroke by Alibaba. Was it Taobao first and then it became Tmall? Describe those two in China, because I think the China marketplaces are fascinating and many people don't realize they're magnitudes greater than the marketplaces even here in the United States.
Yeah, Tmall was established as a platform for brands. So it was more of a traditional B2C kind of platform, e-commerce platform, where brands could establish themselves and maintain the kind of the appeal of their brand. And so Tmall obviously also has been very successful in China.
And of course, they really sort of leapfrogged in China that whole desktop computer phase. They went straight to mobile in a really aggressive way, which helped them as well. I think in the US, we were really late because American consumers could afford that desktop computer, right? And fascinating story. You mentioned the Amazon marketplace launching in 1999. I thought it was later. Did Amazon open the books marketplace first? Was that the first category where they allowed others to sell books, or was it electronic? Because I wasn't aware. In fact, I even write in my book that it was 2000 or a little bit later in 2000 when the marketplace grew. But do you know what that first category was?
No, I'm not sure 100% what the first category was, but it would make sense to me that books would be a category that lend itself, so that you could get access to used books or, very specialized books, etc., from specific, suppliers.
Again, piggyback that eBay story is so funny. The person who called me to sell on Amazon in the first place said, "We just want to be as big as the eBay marketplace someday." And now, of course, the story is totally flipped. So how was Amazon, in your mind, able to take the 800-pound gorilla and become an 8,000-pound gorilla and really deprecate what eBay was doing? What are your thoughts on how that happened?
Yeah, I think, you would think that it would be difficult to displace eBay. But what was going for Amazon was that they already had consumer traffic. So if they were starting from scratch, even if they made the listings free or whatever, they may not have succeeded in displacing eBay. But they already had significant e-commerce traffic from their books and then DVD, CDs business. And that was sufficient to then attract suppliers like yourself by saying there's no listing fee and so forth. I think that was one of the reasons why they were able to establish themselves and then eventually eclipse eBay, because not everything was an auction.
That's the other point, right? Like Amazon came out and I don't think they have it anymore, but they had the auction offering. But eBay really rode that auction wave. And I know there's significant business that's still happening on eBay in the auction mode, but it's sort of fizzled compared to the single price, right?
Yeah, my understanding is that the auctions business is probably 10% of eBay's business. It's all fixed price business, at this point. And I think consumers got tired of that. I mean, it's so much easier to know what the price is and just buy it at that point, as opposed to engaging in a long, auction and, keeping at the, initially it was fun and kind of like a game to participate in an auction. But eventually I think consumers just said, hey, I just want to, look at a product. If I like it, I want to buy it. I want to pay a specific price and not with the auction.
Yeah, I remember my little brother buying on eBay. He was really excited about it. He was auctioning to buy like this X-Files framed photo, right? Of is it Scully, Dana Scully or whatever. And he was so excited, and there was like a lot of excitement about it, but that sort of auction excitement sort of fizzled. For sure, there's still people on. I love that founder story that you share in the book about eBay, how the person who overpaid for the broken laser pointer was a collector of broken laser pointers. I mean, there's got to be that market still out there, right? But do you think that even they want the flat price and they don't want to mess around with auctions anymore?
No, I think there are certain categories like collectibles and so forth where an auction, kind of makes sense and, establish the price for the auction item. But there are specific categories where it makes sense, or, used cars or whatever, right? Where you can bid in, or...
I mean, I think eBay would be in a hurt locker if not for auto sales on its platform. I think they're the undisputed champ in that area for sure. And Amazon, of course, is not playing in that game yet. I think that's to keep their story and keep telling people they're not really a monopoly because they're a smaller percentage of total retail, but we know better. The biggest problem is, number one, when we talk about marketplaces in general, meeting a need. But then the second problem is gaining critical mass with traffic. How do you overcome that? Do you need to go and get a lot of investment money in order to build this traffic? Or you have to identify what the need is for a space for a marketplace. And then you have to bring a lot of traffic to bear. What's the best way to solve for that for folks out there who are thinking, I've had this idea for a marketplace my whole life. I think I should try it because I read Shirish's book and now I get it.
Yeah, so I give some examples in my book with Instacart and DoorDash. So in the case of Instacart, the founder, Apurva Mehta, was actually an Amazon employee before. He actually went to the Safeway website in San Francisco, and he scraped their content and created his website with all the grocery items from Safeway. And then he opened it up, to his friends and family members and so forth. And then he was the driver who would go pick up the items and because he wanted to understand the whole experience end to end, right? He's, solved the supply problem by just scraping content from retailers' websites. Same thing happened with DoorDash, right? They started Palo Alto. In fact, I think they were called Palo Alto Eats or something. And they, took the menus from the websites and posted it on their site. And then consumers would order their meals and then they would place the order physically over the phone with the restaurant, go pick it up and then deliver it to the consumers. So sometimes when it's difficult to get suppliers onto a platform because you don't have really any consumers, you have to find ways to get their content onto your platform. And once you get that content and you're driving traffic, then you can go back to them and say, look, I have so many people who are ordering food or groceries from your site. Why don't we enter into a partnership so that you can then become a member of our platform? So that's how a lot of these platforms got started.
And that really parallels Amazon. Amazon came to us and said, hey, we've got a bunch of traffic. We've got millions of people visiting the website to buy electronics and books. We think they want to buy sporting goods too. And we were like, yeah, where do we send the flat files? So that's fascinating that again, it's this marketplace network effect, connecting the user or the shopper with the supplier, and very innovative to scrape Safeway and some of the other grocery store chains and to build a business model off of that. And then of course, Safeway's like, yeah, I want in. That makes perfect sense. Let's talk a little bit more about the darker side of this, right? I loved how you laid out some of the problems that Apple presents now that they've got potentially, app marketplace power, and the same with Amazon. It's a movie that just keeps replaying, right? That once folks cross over to a certain level of power, they start to act in ways that aren't beneficial necessarily to the suppliers, and in many cases aren't necessarily beneficial to the consumer, whether the consumer knows it or not. Tell us more about some of these problems that once these marketplaces gain critical mass, what are some of these behaviors that are consistent across all the marketplaces that you studied, first of all? And then lastly, what are some things that you recommend, and you had some really good recommendations in the book, that society, potentially legislators, should do to keep a more level playing field, either before, during, or after this monopoly effect? So
yeah. So I give several examples of how Amazon, Apple, and Google have engaged in monopoly behavior. If you take the Amazon, examples, they have, as you know, a private label business, which is only 1% of their overall business. Their goal is to get it to 10%. And, these days, if you, for example, search for an iPhone cable, you'll see immediately an ad for, an iPhone cable from Amazon Basics, right? So they have lots of products. And unfortunately, what they've done is they have self-preferenced their products in their search or in their advertising, right? Even though they may not be the best products or getting the most traffic. So they are competing with their own suppliers, with their own private label brands. And given that Amazon has a good reputation and they're good products, that then drives more and more traffic to their own products. Same thing with Apple. Apple has a number of different applications. They have Apple Maps, Apple Music, etc., right? And they've engaged in self-preferencing. If you search for music, you don't see Spotify necessarily as the first result. Or if you search for maps, you may not see Google Maps as the first result, even though most, Apple users use Google Maps or use Spotify. That's just one example of ways in which Amazon, Apple, Google have taken advantage of the monopoly power. But there are many other examples where, employees in the case of Amazon have been known to access data, about sales of suppliers to then analyze, okay, here's a marketplace, here's a market that we should enter into with our private label business, right? And apparently Amazon has an internal policy that you can't really do that, but nobody's policing it. And so that's why you need regulation from Congress to create a level playing field where you can access some of that data, or you have to spin off your private label business, or, you can engage in self-preferencing things. Only the FTC or the Justice Department or Congress can really take action to prevent some of these behaviors.
I couldn't agree more. Another one that the antitrust folks are circling is this idea where if you use Amazon Fulfillment by Amazon, you can get the Prime badge, and it's essentially you're self-preferencing yourself. They just recently announced that they're going to reopen the ability to do seller fulfilled Prime. I'm concerned though, because Amazon doesn't hold itself to the same standards it holds everyone else when delivering that product. And it goes back to that self-preferencing comment that you just laid out so beautifully here, Shirish, and self-preferencing in search results on the Safari browser, self-preferencing in search results in the largest product search engine in the United States. It affects both suppliers, suppresses innovation, but it also doesn't give the consumer the best possible option. It clouds and sucks away investment from potentially better options. And that leads to, sort of a terrible long-term customer experience as well.
Long-term customer experience, and also supplier, as these marketplaces take more and more percentage of your sale, it reduces the opportunity for them to invest in new products and innovation, right? So the take rate is another, item that has to be closely tracked, so that, you don't end up taking such a high percentage of somebody's sale that they just have very little profit margin to invest in future growth and future innovation.
Oh, that's a great point. I mean, on average, most sellers now that drive the majority of GMV on the Amazon platform, they're giving back 45 cents on every dollar they make. And then they've got to pay their people, they've got to innovate, and they've got to pay for the product. So it's not like the app marketplace, which you actually got to pay for these goods that are moved with significant transportation costs to get to the end user. So I hadn't thought about that take rate until I read it in your book, but it's a great call out. Everywhere I look, there's a marketplace today, Shirish. There's a marketplace for this, there's a marketplace for food, there's a marketplace for grocery delivery, products, learning a new language, thanks to you. One might look at this and say every marketplace that's been thought of has been thought of already. Can you think of examples of where there may be some interesting opportunities for folks who want to start the next great marketplace?
Potentially in the B2B space. Yeah, there are a lot of vertical markets where you can, set up exchanges and so forth, connecting different businesses with suppliers and so forth. Most people think of B2C or C2C marketplaces. They don't really think of B2B marketplaces, which is why I have a section on that and several companies I discussed in that book. So I think there is definitely an opportunity for B2B marketplaces that is still untapped at this point.
Are you thinking about what's your next move here, Shirish?
No, I'm going to continue to write and advise, startups, write books and advise startups. I enjoyed doing that, and that takes up, most of my time. So, maybe in the future I might think of an idea and find someone else to actually go pursue that as a startup venture. I'm too old at this point to do my own. Nobody's going to fund me at my age.
I don't know. That experience is worth a lot. And folks, the book is Winner Takes All. If you want to better understand marketplaces, not just Amazon, Walmart.com, and a lot of the other marketplaces out there, pick up the book. It's a quick read, it's a fun read, and it's incredibly informative. So, Shirish, if any of our listeners want to reach out to you, what's the best way to contact you?
They can reach out to me through my website, shirishnadkarni.com, or I'm on LinkedIn or Twitter. So on LinkedIn, you can connect to me or follow me. I accept all connections. And, I've had, people reach out to me from time to time, seeking advice, investment, etc. So I'm happy to take those queries. Absolutely.
Fantastic, Shirish. Congratulations on all your many successes and on this new book. I really enjoyed it. I think our viewers and our listeners are really going to enjoy it when they buy it. And thank you for taking time out of your busy day to come and be on the Day 2 podcast.
Great to be with you. I really enjoyed it.
In the final analysis, according to Shirish, Amazon was destined to become a monopoly, not because they're evil, but because it's baked into the model called marketplaces. Shirish, thanks for sharing your knowledge and insights in this terrific new book. And we will talk to you soon. Hopefully we can have you back on the show. If you're ready to start growing and protecting your brand on Amazon with a team of experienced Amazon operators, you can visit us at day2podcast.com. That's day, podcast.com. And lastly, if you know of anyone else who would gain value from this podcast and from great guests like Shirish was today, please share it with them. Thanks for listening and happy selling.